Hi, my name is Beth Azor, and I own shopping centers in South Florida. And this is my podcast, I Own a Shopping Center, Now What? So we talk a lot about how you fill vacancies in your properties when you buy new assets. And there's obviously a lot of different ways that you can do it. So number one, you can do it yourself, like I do. Obviously, that's a little harder to do if you own 30 assets around the country. But if a lot of you that listen, I know, are new investors and don't have 30 assets, you might have just purchased your first one, or maybe you have two or three. So I obviously, and you've heard me say this in the past, highly, highly, highly recommend that even if you're an introvert, right? And even if you don't know anything of what you're doing, it would be hugely beneficial for you to fly to the market and spend 5 days learning the market, meeting the brokers in the area, meeting the landlord reps that represent the vacancies and competitive to you in the market, meet the owners of the plazas that are competitors to your assets, and then take a couple days and literally go into store after store after store, introducing yourself as the owner of the new shopping center down the street, that you telling people that you have vacancies, leaving flyers, and just getting some dialogue about what people in the market think about your property, how's business doing for them, what's going on in the market for them. The education that you will get in 5 days from you spending your time in the market and not relying on CoStar or the investment sale broker's intel is the best education that you could possibly get as you are acquiring a multi-million-dollar property. I think it's probably the most important advice that I could give, because from that point forward, you will know so much more to make better decisions. I was with someone recently and they bought an asset and they were under the impression that the market was stronger than it was. And they had relied on information from the seller's OM. They relied on some information that they thought worked in another market, that being close to a city was good for leasing, when in fact, in this particular market, and that had worked for them in the past, but in this particular market, there was significant land available for growth outside of where this asset was. And in the end, he realized that this one was in the middle. It wasn't in the city and it wasn't with the growth area. So the vacancies, it's not easy to lease the vacancies because of its location. Not in the area where there's like a boundary or, hard to get into, where there's low vacancy and high demand. And it's not in the area of high growth. It's in the middle, which is really, probably the worst situation. It's kind of like where I've talked about before with demographics. You never want to own a shopping center in mixed demographics. For example, it used to be older ethnic, neighborhood, maybe, where it's an older community. And now all of those people have either passed away or they've moved out. And now it's becoming a low income. So you have a mix of, a hair salon that does sets weekly with the older clientele, with next to tenant that, is more catering to lower income, like weekly cell phone, paying retailers. And when you're trying to lease a shopping center that has a changing demographic, it's super difficult. I never want to own a property that's in the middle of a changing demographic. I want it to be either an all wealthy, an all, one ethnicity. We have a center down here in South Florida where the majority of the tenants are of an Asian demographic, and the center is popping. And most of the tenants are Asian entrepreneurs, and it's a very successful property. So I want it to be all one demographic feature servicing a similar demographic. And so be careful about that when you're buying. And again, if this particular person had spent 5 days or even 3 days in the market talking, because now they're talking to brokers and the brokers are telling them, oh yeah, this is going to be super hard to lease. But they should have done that due diligence in advance. The other thing that I want to talk about when you're filling vacancies is obviously you can hire someone to do it on your team, and that is costly. I would say that all in on an annual basis, I'm thinking it's about $100,000. Let's say it's 75 in salary or a draw plus bonuses. And you have to, if you own properties, let's say 3 properties in 3 different cities, you have to fly them to those cities. So that's expensive. Now, I think if they can do a few leases, it covers the costs pretty quickly. So I think that's a good plan, because we've also if you have 3 shopping centers and you have 2 vacancies in each one, it's going to be super hard to find a broker in those 3 different markets that will put the attention and the priority on your property versus one where they might have 20 vacancies. So it is a good idea to hire someone, but it's hard to find that person. They really, this person that I was with this week said, what are the criteria or the skills levels? Do they need to be super smart? I don't think they need to be super smart. I think they need to be hungry, and they need to be able to work independently and be able to fly to a city and, have a plan and be persistent and follow up, prospecting and follow up and be organized and set meetings before they go. So this needs to be a very organized person, a very hungry person, very driven person. When it comes to intelligence, of course, I want them to be smart, but the leasing director or the owner of the plaza, that's the person that needs to be the one where this person on the street is creating the numbers and bringing you, I went to this town, I prospected for 3 days, and here I have 3 active prospects. The leasing director or the owner of the shopping center, is the one that can be creating the strategy and asking the right questions of the 3 deals, which is the one that we want the most, if let's say there's 1 space. And then lastly, I want to talk about if you do hire a broker, and again, in small towns or in cities that you don't live in, if you only have a couple vacancies, I don't think the top commercial broker in town is going to pay attention to you. I would focus on the top residential realtor in town, especially if it's a small town. They want to do commercial. They will be more hungry and pay more attention to you and really work harder, I think, for you than certainly the top commercial. Or find the rookie commercial, the person who just got into commercial, who maybe works for the top commercial guy in town, and hire the rookie who's hungry. We have a top firm in South Beach, and they just hired a rookie agent. And one of my friends actually on Twitter was looking for an agent in South Beach. And I found out that this top firm had hired a rookie. So I've connected the two. And my friend is very, very happy with this rookie because they are really hungry. They really want to prove a point to their firm. So it's working out well. But what I'm finding sometimes is owners of shopping centers are not giving brokers, commercial real estate brokers, the respect that they deserve. And that's a big mistake. That's a very big mistake. And I don't know where that comes from, but I would warn you that you should be very respectful of brokers. They are the conduits in many times between you, especially some of the national retailers that they rep, tenant rep brokers. Someone that I spoke to recently said that they were looking to hire a broker for an asset with, I think, 4 or 5 vacancies. So perfect. But he said that the broker said to them after 3 interviews, hey, buddy, maybe we're not the person for you. And I was like, what do you mean 3 interviews? He said, yeah, I interviewed them, and then my partner interviewed them, and then I wanted my head of property management to interview them. I'm like, 3 different interviews for one brokerage firm, there's no way I would ever do that. And, that was a lack of respect for that broker's time. They're commission only. They work for you for free until they get a deal. So I said, why wouldn't you just have one meeting with everyone in the room? So I thought that was a lack of respect. And I think it's a lack of respect. I see this with some folks who are investors. I don't know where it's coming from, but they just have a lack of respect for the brokerage industry. And yes, are there some people out there that maybe don't deserve all of the respect in the world? Like they just want to get a deal done. They just want to get paid. Yes, of course, there's some people like that. But that's your job as the investor and owner of the property to figure that out in one interview, if this is the group for you or not. And again, we've talked about what kind of questions to ask in the interview process to try to figure that out regarding testimonials from prior clients, etc. So that's my rant for the day. Get into your market while you're in due diligence, before you buy the asset. And then even after you buy the asset, you do the leasing and find out how hard of a job it is so that you have a higher level of respect for the people you hire, whether it's an in-house person or a third-party broker. I hope this helped. If you like the podcast, please share it on social media platforms, share it with your friends, subscribe, and I'll see you next week.